What's
Hey,
up,
Todd.
man? Hey, how's it going?
Oh, just hanging out with this bear.
I see that.
Hey, man, I know you've put a lot of hard work and energy and effort into this mess. Don't look right at me. Oh, no, don't turn your head away. It's okay. I know you've put a lot of hard work and everything, but I've got this covered, all right?
Well, we are talking about bearing false witness, but not exactly the same direction you appear to have went with it.
No, like I said, I've taken care of this. I've already witnessed to this false bear.
Well, I appreciate your effort, but you're wrong, dude. You're way off. You're way off. I'll try to clear up the air, clear up the confusion. That is not what we're talking about, bearing false witness this morning.
I'm sorry, bear. Go ahead.
He looks so sad under
Yeah,
there.
because you hurt his feelings. You said all of our work is...
At least he zipped up this service.
That's
It was a little
true, that's
revealing
true.
last one.
Well, sorry, Todd. This was embarrassing.
I see what he did there. Did you get it? You guys have had your coffee this morning. I'm proud of you. Hey, my name is Todd. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you to the team. Thank you for Bob for having me. I gotta ask you up front, and just answer honestly. We're talking about honesty today. Does anybody in the room know how to talk back to a preacher? Anybody at all? If you don't, it's fine. I just need to know what to expect in return, okay? But you're willing to talk to me? Yeah. I can't really hold you to it, but I hope you follow through with that. We'll see where we go. All right, here's the deal. I told a lie not that long ago. I know. I told a lie on a golf course, which is a very popular place for men to go to be dishonest. I am one of those people. I was playing golf not that long ago, and I guess I should say this as well. I know what it's like when the guy on the church stage opens up with a story about golf. 70% of the people are like, oh, here we go again. Why do pastors always talk about golf? I get it. This is not a golf story as much as it is a self-deprecating story, all right? I am not coming out as the shining hero at the end of the story. You should be thoroughly entertained by just how silly I look. But this is what happened when I told the lie on the golf course. Now, I was playing golf with one of my friends. Now, he's bigger than me, he's stronger than me, he's younger than me, he is not better looking than me, I'm not gonna give him that, but he is bigger, stronger, faster, has more facial hair, and what's more important is he hits the golf ball significantly farther than what I am capable of hitting the golf ball. And I've got a slight ego, slight to severe, and I'm not cool with getting outdriven 40 yards every single hole, and he's making these jokes about, why don't you play from the ladies' tees? It'll be more fair. And I'm like, that's not funny. So I get really insulted by that. So I give myself one heck of a pep talk. It's like the 7th or 8th hole. I don't really remember. All I remember is I bombed a drive. I mean, I hit it as far as I possibly could. I equaled his distance on the drive. And so we got the same approach shot going into the green. Our second shot is essentially identical. Now, golf is a gentleman's game. As a gentleman, I was striking up gentlemanly conversation. I just casually asked my friend, hey man, what club are you gonna hit on this shot? And he casually responds, I'm gonna hit a 9-iron. Now, on the surface, I'm like, cool, man, cool. 9-iron sounds about right, cool. But that's my outward response. What was happening internally was much, much different. I'm thinking, 9-iron? This guy is about to hit a 9-iron? I would have to hit a 9-iron twice from this distance in order to reach the green. But I said, cool, man, 9-iron, sounds good. I had a 6-iron in my hand at the time. Now, if you're not familiar with golf, a 6-iron is designed to hit the golf ball much further than what a 9-iron is designed to hit the golf ball. At this point in time, he turns the tables on me, and he asks me a question that I am in no way, shape, or form prepared for. He asks me, with my 6-iron in hand, literally taking practice swings, he asks me, what club are you hitting, Todd? And immediately, without hesitation, stuck my chest out and I said, 9-iron. And had I been more committed to not being found out in my lie, I would have messed up the next shot on purpose. I would have just hit it into the woods, duffed it. That would never call into question my dishonesty, but that's not what I did. No, this criminal mastermind up here, I proceeded to hit the golf ball about as good as I can hit a golf ball. I hit my alleged 9-iron, probably 185 yards. I airmailed the green. I mean, I sailed it over the green, and I am so busted in this moment. I kind of turn around to make my way back to the golf cart, and I'm like, just don't say anything. I hope he doesn't say anything. And I don't even look at him. I just hear, 9-iron, bro. And he said it like that too. He's like, 9-iron, bruh. I don't know why he said it like that, but I remember it distinctly because I was so busted in my lie. The story does not get better. It gets worse. Instead of just owning up and saying, hey man, I don't know why I told you I had a 9-iron. I guess I was a little bit insecure. I didn't want to admit that you're stronger than me. Like I doubled down on my lie. And I looked at the bottom of the club, you know, where the number is etched or engraved in the bottom of the club. And I looked at it and I'm like, I acted surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh. I must have pulled a 6-iron out by mistake. Anybody could have made that mistake because a 6 looks awful similar to a 9-iron, don't you think? Like, I went with that bulletproof defense because I didn't want to look stupid. That was a joke. I know I looked stupid in that moment. It was really, really, really pathetic. And you might think, what? It's not a big deal. It's just a silly little lie. It was just a silly little lie. But here's what's significant for our conversation today. I want you to understand the why behind the lie. What fueled my lie? And here's what it is. The why behind the lie is this. I told that lie all because I did not want to be perceived as weak. I told the lie all because I didn't want anybody to think that I was somehow inferior. I didn't want him to think that I was incapable. I didn't want him to think that I was less than. I didn't want him to have a window into my perceived weakness. And so rather than be honest about it and just say, hey man, I can't hit the ball as far as you, I'm hitting a 6. Rather than just be honest, I hid behind a lie. And I tell that story not to project my shortcomings onto you, but I think my little golf line story is very representative about the way that the majority of us interact with or relate to our weaknesses. Because here's the reality, most of us hate the idea of being perceived as weak so much that rather than being straight up and telling the truth, we would rather hide behind a lie. Like we'd rather deceive just a little bit. We'd rather cover up the truth. We certainly don't want to admit that we have a propensity in this area or a tendency towards weakness in this area. And so rather than be straight up, we opt to hide behind a lie, all because we don't want to be perceived as weak. And this is review, okay? This is by way of review. We're in the middle of a series. We're not in the middle of the series. We're at the tail end of the series that we've called Family Matters. And what we've done is each week we've taken one of the commandments that God gave to the Israelites in the Old Testament book of Exodus. You don't have to turn there. We're going to read that verse real quick. Make your way to Matthew chapter 26. That's where we're going to hang out the majority of the time. But the commandment that we're going to study today is the 9th of the 10th. It's in Exodus 20, verse 16. It reads like this. It says, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Now, I don't think anybody would accuse me of taking too much creative license if I just offer this kind of loose Cliff Notes translation where essentially what the Bible is saying is just don't lie. Don't deceive. Don't cover up. Don't mislead. Don't tell partial truths. Don't lie. It's very simple. Like that's a very expected topic of conversation in church world. So maybe you're sitting there, you're thinking, oh my goodness, impress me, dude. I've heard everything there's to hear about lying. I'm not going to tease this verse out for the remainder of our time. Instead, I want to shift the conversation a little bit, and I want to address what I believe to be the single biggest, most popular lie in circulation in all of our relationships. I got no data to back this up. I'm just going to be straightforward. I didn't do any scientific research. I didn't Google this thing, but experience has taught me that the most popular lie going is when somebody close to you asks you, how are you doing? We insert the very popular, very overused lie, I'm fine. And we say I'm fine, and we insert that lie all because we don't want to be perceived as weak. It's all too common. And hear me, I'm not talking about like hallway conversations or water cooler conversations where like somebody you don't even know their name asks you how you doing and you just launch in and unload and let them. I am not advocating that. That is not a good way to make friends. Don't do that. I want to talk about the relationships that are close to you. It might just be one person. It might be 2 or 3 people, but I want you to have on your mind the people who are in relational and emotional proximity to you. When that person or those individuals ask you, how are you doing? Why on earth do we hide behind, it's fine? Because here's the reality. We say we're fine, but what's happening underneath the surface? We can't even sleep. We're so stressed out at night. We got kids. We think we're failing as a parent. Like your teenager making decisions. You're like, oh my goodness, it was one thing when they were little, but now there's real consequences to the potential bad decisions that they're making. Maybe you're stressed out because the bills are coming in faster than the money's coming in. Maybe you got aging parents, and maybe your heart and your stomach is all tied up in knots all the time because you just don't know how you're gonna manage all the stressors of life. And yet when somebody asks you, how are you really? I'm fine. It's all good. It's got other variations as well. It's not always just fine. Sometimes we say, it's not a big deal. You know, so what if I've got some pain or some baggage from my childhood? So what if I've got some pain or some baggage from my parents' divorce or my divorce? So what if I didn't get into like the college of my choice? So what if I got rejected for that job? It's not a big deal. I'm fine. I know we say that all the time, but I just want to ask you on the front end of this message, are you honestly fine? Because I think that stock answer that we resort to is typically just a way to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. And hear me, okay? The reason I talk about this today is not because at the end of the service, we're all gonna stand up, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya around a campfire. Like that's not where this is going. I'm not gonna make you hug it out, none of those things. It's not the Blair Witch Project Sunday where we're gonna turn out the lights, everybody gets introspective and we look for something scary, only to figure out there's nothing really scary there at all. Like if you're fine, like that's fine. I'm glad, I'm happy for you. But the majority of us probably have 1, maybe 2, maybe more issues that are just kind of off limits, that we just kind of push under the rug, that we just never really seem to be willing to face up to and talk about. It's those issues I want to talk about this morning, because here's the deal. We are never more broken, and our world is never more broken in the area of relationships. Nothing causes more heartache or more sorrow or more tears or more pain or more crises than strained and broken and fractured relationships, and some of us know that all too well. And all over the world, there are counselors' offices, and there are people flooding into those offices, and they're at the end of their rope, and they don't know what to do, and they can't seem to figure things out on their own. And those counselors are urging them and pleading with those individuals, will you just open up about what's really troubling you on the inside? Will you just begin speaking about and putting language to the things that are plaguing you in your emotional world? Will you just open up and talk about what's really honestly happening in your headspace? Because if you're not healthy, you're never going to have healthy relationships. And here's another reality. You and I will never feel love and connection the way that we want to feel love and connection until we drop the act, we stop pretending, and we present our honest selves, weaknesses and all, to the people who love us the most. So in Matthew chapter 26, the rest of our time, I want to talk about how God has freed us up to relate to our own weaknesses, not in a dishonest way, but in a healthy way. So Matthew chapter 26, a little bit of context. This is taking place in a garden known as Gethsemane. It's a public park, if you will, just outside the city gate of Jerusalem. And where we're gonna pick up the story is in the moments immediately preceding what I consider to be history's darkest hour. In just a matter of moments, Jesus is going to be arrested by the Roman authorities. He is going to be tortured so severely that the Old Testament prophet Isaiah says he won't even be recognized anymore. It's gonna be so brutal. He's gonna be ultimately executed on a Roman cross for crimes that he most certainly did not commit. It is the most savage form of capital punishment, maybe in the history of all of humanity. He knows what's around the corner. He knows what's coming. And so to say that he is agitated or emotionally distressed, that is a gross, flagrant understatement. This is emotional upheaval like you and I can barely imagine. And because we can't imagine it, because this is so extreme and so severe, we're tempted to just dismiss this and be like, my problem's pale in comparison to what's happening in this moment. I want you to listen. Do not dismiss this. Pain is pain. Your pain is real to you. Your pain is real to you. My pain is real to me. There's no sense comparing pain. Pain is pain is pain is pain. And I'm pointing you to this story because Jesus sets a bold example of how we can deal honestly with the things that plague us on an emotional level. We're gonna start reading in verse 36. It says then, well, when is then? It's immediately after the Last Supper. Jesus went with them, who's them, the 11 disciples, to a place called Gethsemane. He said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. And taking with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. You said you'd talk to me earlier. Anybody relate to feeling sorrowful and troubled? I thought so. Then he said to them, straight up, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me. There's no disputing this is a troubling situation. That is very, very clear on the circumstances alone. But notice what Jesus did not say. He didn't say, yeah, I'm sorrowful, but it's fine. He didn't say, yeah, I'm sorrowful right now, but it's really not a big deal. He didn't say that. He didn't say, I'm sorrowful, but God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good. Can I get a witness? Like he didn't say that. He didn't say, I'm sorrowful, and immediately punctuate that reality with some positive faith spin on all of it. And so I just can't help but wonder, if Jesus didn't do that, why do those of us who run in faith circles, why do we feel compelled to always put a religious positive silver lining on really terrible circumstances? If Jesus didn't do that, why do we do it? And I don't mean to generalize, but I have a feeling that the reason this is harder for those who run in faith circles is because I don't know if you've been paying attention or not, but Christians globally are not exactly known for handling weaknesses well. Have you noticed? Like, this is not the headline. This is not the headline. If we were to poll everybody on the planet, hey, what's your impression of Christianity? The headline would not be, Christians are so kind, they are so empathetic, they're so caring and patient with people who've got serious problems in their life. I wish it was, but that's not the headline. And you probably know that because when's the last time you asked somebody at church? You ever get this response? Like, hey man, I appreciate you asking me, but you know, dude, I can't. Church, me? I can't go to church. Not the way I live. Here's what you gotta do. You wanna invite me to church? Here's what you gotta do. Give me some lead time. And with adequate lead time, maybe I'll string together a few solid, morally performing weeks in a row, and then maybe I'll come to church. But I come now, dude, that place gets struck by lightning and get burnt to the ground. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't come. So even the general public is telling us a little something about us. It's called your Sunday best for a reason. And it's way more than just your clothes. Y'all look nice except for that Bama shirt over there. Sorry, man, tough loss. But I shouldn't have done that, man. That is painful. He is in a weak moment. That is so my bad. We'll give you a donut afterwards. I don't know. But Sunday best is so much more than your clothes. It's your presentation. It's how you drive to church and you fighting with the family because the kids are crazy and everybody knows it and you're yelling at them and like, get the goldfish off you get the goldfish off the floor and it's in disarray. You've been fighting on it, but you see that greeter out front of the church building. Hey man, life is good. Hashtag bless life. This is so good. God is good, man. Like, and you're in here, you say, hallelujah, amen, and like we out in the lobby and we rubbing shoulders with people and be like, hey man, good to see you, brother. It is good to see you. We should get together sometime. I am praying for you. Love you, buddy. Love you. And then he goes that way, you go this way, you lean over to your friend, you're like, what's his name, man? And we do this whole thing, and it's like this presentation, and hear me, I'm playing a little bit, but my point is not to suggest that everybody's putting on a show and putting on a charade. My point is simply this: Christians don't have a reputation for handling weaknesses well. And we've replaced the idea of progress and journey with that of perfection. And in doing so, because nobody can live up to perfection, we've shamed people into silence about what is honestly going on in their lives. And so instead of being straight up, we hide behind it's fine, but it is not fine. And I know we've got valid reasons we say we're fine. We've all been hurt, every single person. We've all been misrepresented. We've all been mistreated. We've all probably received judgment when what we really needed was grace. We've probably all had people walk away when what we really needed in that moment was for them to lean in and throw their arms around us and hug us and say, it's going to be okay. But we get hurt enough and we get judged enough and we get mistreated enough, we hide behind it's fine. And that's a really dangerous place to be, because when we tell ourselves it's fine when it's not fine, we die in silence. And we forfeit the opportunity of receiving the help and the love and support that is available to us through God, through the people that God has put in our lives, but we will never access that power. We will never access that encouragement. We will never access that help, all because we insist on telling the cute little innocent lie, it's fine. But you pay the price for it. The people you're unwilling to tell what's really going on and know something's going on, they just don't know what. And they need your help. They need you to open the door and open the window so they can get a clear glimpse of what's actually happening so they can love you through that process. Because Jesus took a much different approach than what we usually resort to. Did you notice we make Jesus out to be a robot? We always do that. Yeah, he was fully God, but he was also fully man. All of the emotions that we feel, he felt. All of the temptations that we go through, he went through the same things. All of the urges and impulses, he is well acquainted with those feelings. But in his moment of need, he did not bluff stoicism. He did not downplay the struggle. He did not dismiss his own emotions as if to suggest they're not valid. Nope, he was straight up with his closest companions, and he said, my heart is so sorrowful, I feel like I'm dying. He called it like it is. He minced no words, he pulled no punches, and he told his closest companions exactly what he was experiencing on an emotional level. Kindergarten was a tough year for me. We're changing gears, if you can't tell. Hang with me. Don't get lost in the turns. Kindergarten was a tough year. It was 1990. I was in small town, rural Ohio. Kindergarten, the classroom was not that hard. I'm sure it was pleasant. We got naps and snacks. I imagine it wasn't that bad. But the bus drive to kindergarten was traumatizing. Anybody bus riders out there? You rode the bus to school when you were a child. Throw them up high and proud. You guys are survivors. You guys are tough. I applaud you, sir. I applaud you, ma'am. Security, come in here, though. These are the people you got to watch out for. They're probably smuggling knives up in here. You never know. You never know. But I was a bus rider. My bus driver was terrifying for this reason. She'd been smoking for 172 years. And her voice clearly reflected that. And you know how the bus driver would get that lever and the door would swing open like you might see in a horror movie and it like creak and you're like scared. So you like take those massive steps up the bus and she's like, you walk in there, she's like, find a seat. Down in the back, you know? And it's just like, oh my gosh, she's like, my bus driver's demonic. Like, I know she is. I don't know what's going on. And so it was like really, really, really scary. I didn't want to face her every single day. And so here's what I did. I'm not advocating this. If you're a child in the room, do not do this. But I did it. So I was like pretty athletic as a kid. I was really quick, like really quick. The first 2 services, I said I was sneaky quick like James Harden. I'm not James Harden quick, but I was quick is the point. Why is that important? Here's why it's important. Mom would open the door for me to take the Trail of Tears processional down to the bus. I would take 1 step out the door, 1 step past mom, and I would V-line and sprint as fast as I could, as far as my little 6-year-old legs could take me, deep into the woods that was at the back edge of our property. And I found a little spot where nobody could possibly find me. And I tell you that story because I suspect there's a lot of people under the sound of my voice who you live your life the same way I lived mine with the bus in kindergarten. There are certain things that you just don't want to face. There are certain things that are just too uncomfortable. There are certain things that just are socially off limits. And so rather than lean into them and address them, you have carved out a safe little space in this big, scary world, and you live your life with the goal of no one ever finding you. The real you. The weak you. Not the personality you hide behind, not the smile you slap on, but the stuff that is real on the inside. And if there's any part of you that relates to that feeling of, hey, I just don't want to be found out. Like maybe you're the person who you keep people at such arm's length emotionally, or you're so smooth and so good at navigating relationships away from the uncomfortable. If you are that person who, whether consciously or subconsciously, you know that you don't want to be found out, you know you don't want people to have a window into your life, and you live your life hiding, if that's you, listen real carefully. It's going to be up on the screen. It might be worth noting down. It might be worth taking a picture, but the freedom you want is not found in hiding so effectively that nobody ever finds you out. The freedom you want to experience is no longer hiding at all. That's real freedom, is when you understand that what God offers to us is mercy and grace and compassion and love and tenderness, and that streams of mercy should flow from God the Father to us, and they do. But what should happen as well is that that same merciful, tender, compassionate spirit should flow from other Christians to us in our time of need as well. Did you notice I said it should? Because often it doesn't. And chances are, if you live your life in hiding, it's probably because at some point in time, you have received judgment instead of grace. You've probably been shunned or shamed into feeling guilty about what you're experiencing. And if you have ever opened up to a believer who bears Christ's name and you have been received with anything other than love and tenderness and patience and kindness, let me tell you, first and foremost, I'm so sorry. I know what that's like because I've done both things. I've been the receiving end of judgment, but I've also judged other people and not handled their hearts the way that I should have as well. There's so much complexity behind this. I realize that. But if you get mistreated enough, what ends up happening is this. Instead of holding your ground and fighting for a solution, you opt to flee to an escape. But hear me, if you've been treated that way, that type of treatment is not from God. You need to know that. You need to know the distinction there. The lines easily get blurred. But if life is hard enough for long enough, and our problems don't go away, and we pray and we pray and we pray, and things get worse and worse and worse, we start thinking, what's the point? What's the point of staying faithful anymore? What's the point of coming home anymore? This family doesn't care. They don't appreciate me. What's the point of praying? Nothing ever happens. These prayers are hitting the ceiling. Why am I doing this anymore? What's the point? And you start entertaining ways of escape. And this desire to escape, it's not wrong. In fact, 3 times we're about to read it, Jesus wanted a way out of his tough circumstances. Read with me in verse 39. It says, going a little further, he fell on his face and he prayed, saying, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. What's that mean? He's saying, God, if there's any way around this challenging thing that I've been asked to do, can we opt for that escape hatch? That's what he's asking. Then he goes and checks on the guys. They're asleep. That kind of bums Jesus out a little bit. Verse 42, again, for the second time, he went away and prayed, my Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done. Again, he's saying, I want this to pass, but if you're not allowing me to go around this and I have to go through it, I'm going to submit my will to what you're asking me to do. Verse 43, the guys are sleeping again. Verse 44, so leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the 3rd time, saying the same words again. He wants a way out. I told you he feels the same impulses and urges and emotions that we do. He didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to go through with it. He wanted a way of escape, but he chose to do something different. He chose to do something far more bold, far more courageous, far more vulnerable. He asked his guys for help. And hear me, I know the struggle of life. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I got my own stuff. And I know you're not gonna listen to this little message, and as soon as you leave or as soon as you turn off the computer, all your problems are gonna melt away. I know that's not reality. I know the same revolving circumstances that you came here with, they're waiting for you in the wings. The same dysfunctional relationships, they're still waiting for you in the wings. And I know what it's like. You think, what's the point? You're losing a little bit of your resolve and you're entertaining different ways of escape, which is a natural response to the pressure and stress of life. But hear me. If you don't escape to the right place, it becomes self-sabotage. We self-sabotage when we say stuff like it's fine when we're not fine. We self-sabotage when we insist it's not a big deal, when we know in our heart it's a big deal. We self-sabotage when instead of facing up to the reality of our emotional world, we avoid it with work. We numb it with alcohol. We numb it with weed. We numb it with insert your numbing agent of choice. And those numbing mechanisms, they might offer temporary relief, but it's not a solution. The same angst that you feel and the frustration that you feel and the pain that you feel, it's on the inside and it lodges itself there and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. Until you're on the edge, about to make a decision that will never change God's love for you. It will never revoke God's offer of forgiveness. But if you follow through with it, the consequences in this life will be so real. The pain will be real. You'll hurt yourself. You'll hurt a lot of other people. All because we can't just face up. All because we insist. It's good. I'm okay. It's fine. There's a better option, y'all. There's a better option. It's in verse 38. This is review. We're going to take our cues from Jesus. We already read this, but I want you to notice what he asked for in response from his friends. He already told them that he's emotionally distressed. Verse 38 says, then he said to them, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. And here's what he asks in response. Remain here and watch with me. That's pretty simple. You got to swallow your pride to do so. That's not so simple. Listen, he didn't ask these guys to solve the unsolvable mysteries of life. He didn't ask these guys to provide answers to questions that really don't have an answer at all. He didn't ask him to quote like 6 Bible verses that are gonna alleviate the tension and turmoil he felt once and for all. He didn't ask any of those things. Instead, his request was so humble. His request was so honest. His request was so human. He just said, I'm hurting. I'm going through it. Will you please just be here with me? There's not a single person listening who can't do that. But like I said, it requires humility. And y'all, I read this and I dream. I just can't help but dream. Like, I know that's a big ask. I'm not suggesting it's simple. Like, there's simple words, but the emotion behind it, all of the complex, like inner turmoil behind it, I get it. That's not as easy of an ask as what it appears to be on the surface. I know it's difficult, but I just wonder what hangs in the balance of your decision to get out from hiding, to stop insisting you're fine, and what hangs in the balance of your decision to start talking about what's plaguing your heart. What hangs in the balance, but maybe more importantly, who hangs in the balance? Guys, dream with me. What could change? Like if we started facing up to this stuff, what possibly could change? What breakthroughs might you experience with your spouse? What new levels of intimacy might be waiting for in the wings, but you'll never know unless you try? Like what would happen in your relationship with your children if instead of like trying to portray this strong, put together, hey, my life is solid as a rock image, what if instead of that, using discretion, of course, they're children, I get it, but what might change if you just said, hey, it's hard for me too. Let's think about it from this angle. What if people confide in you? You know, yeah, I'm asking you to open up, but what about the people who are vulnerable with you and say, I need some help right now. Here's what I'm going through. Will you remain with me like Jesus asked his guys to remain with him? What about when people ask you that, what do you do? Can we just collectively make a commitment that we are resolute in our determination to handle people and their hearts and their vulnerabilities with the utmost tenderness, with the utmost care? People are fragile. People are broken. Life is hard. Life is painful. And when we rush to offer simple solutions to complex problems, we're not doing anybody any favors. And what if instead of rushing to offer solutions, we became comfortable just sitting with people in their pain? And we were just with them. It doesn't help anybody to tee up these weak solutions that make us, the advice givers, feel better, but don't really help. What would change? So I'm begging you, I'm asking you, like if somebody opens up to you, please treat them delicately. That's a weighty responsibility. And you know, I can't help but wonder what would change in terms of the reputation of the church at large if we just started being a little bit more honest about the weaknesses in our life. I think a lot could change. Because for the longest time, we, the church, have bought into a lie that what is going to make us influential and what's going to make us attractive to people who do not believe the things that we believe. We've bought the lie that what's going to give us distinction and influence is our moral excellence. That's not it. Because we are no more morally excellent than any other person walking the globe, regardless of what they believe. That's not what sets us apart. What sets us apart and what makes us a little bit influential is when we start saying, yeah, I'm just as busted up as you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go through just as many dark seasons and dark valleys as you. I've been forgiven. You know, I don't got it together, but I'm still walking through it. Wait, they gave you a microphone? Yeah, man, I can't believe it either, dude. I don't know. Can't believe it. But if you can do that and you can go there, and God's forgiven you and God's walking the road with you, certainly, like that's worth paying attention to. And so might I suggest, if you've got some progress to make in terms of relational health, or you got some progress to make in terms of emotional health, which we all do, by the way, might I suggest that a really good place to start is to stop saying it's fine. Would y'all pray with me? Lord, thank you so much for your word that makes it so incredibly clear. But even though it's clear, it does not mean it's simple. So I pray that you would infuse everyone listening with the courage necessary to take their next step in pursuit of health. And I pray that in your name, amen.